A lot of what we did get was...
Don't make me separate you two. Oh, wait,
it was amazingly good stuff from the fans, and being able to get those stories we never considered coming back is one of the most special and not a short list thing I could think of from it.
So I think the second question I had on my little list before we kind of let people have at it was something that always struck me is, and I've talked to a lot of people like worked on franchises like Star Wars, when you've got one immaculate universe but a lot of people kind of get to sit in the driver's seat. That always presents some rather unique challenges, and I think that probably everyone here would have some story about what they found to be the most challenging element of working within the franchise history, or anything that was of that nature. No.
Maybe somebody else will first.
Hey, not the girl. Justin?
I was always terrified that the players were going to fuck up all my genius. And that's something that you kind of grow out of, that you come into it thinking that you're going to change the world, and now that you're publishing games, people have a chance to hear your voice. But when really, as publishers, all we're doing is giving players the tools to make a game. And at the end of the day, it's not about what we have printed, it's about what the people who buy the games and enjoy the games do. And that's, to me, is what one of the most amazing things about ICC and the Camarilla and live action is in a lot of situations, they don't give a shit what we published. You know, there's a handful of great ideas in there, and they'll take those handful of great ideas and they'll ignore 95% of it, but that 5% they'll run with, and they'll make it theirs, and they'll enjoy it. And you know, God bless them for it, because that's what they're enjoying. All the rest of it, they don't need. And that was actually a hard lesson for me to learn, sitting in the developer's seat where I'm the guy controlling all this, when really, it doesn't matter what I say. I'm there to give a few ideas out to people who are going to be using the tools.
Anyone else?
Well, one of the things that I think was trickiest as a developer was risking getting lost in the minutia of the world. We could put in a lot of little details and really get bogged down in that, and in my mind, that would have always lost us. It was most beautiful about the setting and the game itself, but thankfully I think we had the advantage of realizing what our roots were, both within gaming, within literature, within mythology, and being able to turn to those whenever we started a game. I said, well, here's another magic item, let's do another Dungeon Crawl Diablerie book, that sort of thing, and really pulling out the bigger themes that made the game so compelling.
I have to say that both as a player and a creator, one of the things that I appreciate most about Vampire the Requiem is the fact that from the beginning you use the toolbox approach, and so as a creator I had way more freedom. I mean, frankly, I do not envy the juggling job that my predecessors had to manage with flair and aplomb, I might add. But so, you know, I actually had a little bit more liberty in regards to that kind of thing. We can just, you know, if we had a weird idea, we weren't required to, you know, we aren't required to find a place to fit it into things. We can just say, you can use it, you cannot, it's there.
It's, again, God bless the toolbox approach, because the position for me was absolutely coming out of Masquerade's huge history and competing every day with not just what had already come before, but the expectation of what was going to come next, just from coming after Masquerade, makes for a surprising challenge. And it's always tricky to come up with stuff that's going to surprise people, that they were going to be happy to be surprised by. And the toolbox approach was kind of a godsend for us as well for doing that, because it meant that it was easy to toss something out and go, oh, no, you don't like that? Well, then for you that doesn't exist, just don't worry about it. And for people to lock on to the different things that they like, to find their 5%, and whether that's a different 5% from everybody else's. But that was the challenge for sure overall. The challenge was coming into the early days of Requiem with Masquerade standing behind you, you know, being like, looking over your shoulder the whole time, being like, well, that's not how I would have done it. And I mean, it was just a hell of a legacy for people. So.
Any thoughts, Ron?
As far as being frustrated by what came before, or,
I said a challenging element of working on the franchise. If that's how you'd like to interpret it, by all means.
Not at all, I'm just clarifying. No, not really. One of the great things about the vampire setting is there are all these machinations and wheels within wheels, which gives you an excuse to more or less write over things that you don't like anyway. And, it really isn't a continuity error, it's another layer of the meta plot. And also,
He's talking about you, Andrew.
No, and I love that's actually one of the best parts was our ability to violate canon anytime we wanted to. Early on, we did have this argument: do we have to stay absolutely true? Can we really mess things up? And then Rasputin came up, and everybody here loves Rasputin. And we went ahead, and the reason Rasputin's in so many places is 2 writers sent us books about the same time. One with Rasputin as a vampire, and one with him, I don't know, mage or something like that. Yeah. And we said, okay, let's make him everything. And that way we drive home the fact that none of this is written in stone, that all of this is to do with as you please, and even we can do weird things to completely violate the history of it. So yeah, Rasputin's vampire, werewolf, mage, ghost, everything.
We had that all written out well in advance.
This was probably also about the time that Nerf guns were banned in the office.
Yeah, one of the things that I found that when fans would write to me or ask me at conventions, how does that really work? Or what is the right way to do that particular mechanic? Or, what's the real story behind this? And a lot of the time it would be accompanied by, well, my storyteller says this, but I think he's wrong. And they'd get very frustrated because I would say, whatever your storyteller says goes. And they're like, no, but what is it really? And I said, no, this is owned by each person who gets in each group that gets together to tell these kinds of things. There's not one definitive answer.
It's funny that a lot of players weirdly think of that as a cop-out when they're being given license to create whatever they want, and in a lot of cases they want to be told what to do. I mean, Will, you're talking about Requiem as a great toolbox, and it is a great toolbox, but what it does is eliminates a ton of meta plot, and for a lot of players that meta plot is when you're dropped in the deep end of the pool with a billion possibilities, man, just give me one thing to do. And being told, well, whatever you want to do, yeah, that's great if I have the initiative to think of what I want to do, but I've just been exposed to this giant, immense world. Give me a kind of direction. As a fish, I need somewhere to swim. And that's where I think a lot of the work that was done with the clans, the characterizations of the clans, really comes in and shapes a lot of the vampire experience. I think if Vampire didn't have clans, it wouldn't have been the same game. People wouldn't have twigged to it the same way, people wouldn't have had the same experiences, people wouldn't have had those identities to identify with, and it would have given them a lot less to, once you immediately get into a game, you can hit the ground running. Oh, I'm a Tremere. Well, that means I hate those guys and I hate those guys, and they're in my player group, so I want to fuck up their business. So, that gives you something to start with, and still enough room to creatively do what I want to do.
Yeah, there definitely had to be some direction there. Justin's absolutely right, and I think we were having Chicago by Night come out shortly after the main rulebook helped a lot with that as well, to show the sort of stories that could be told. It was exactly my experience. Here you've got a million possibilities, go do something. And you are left kind of, well, which one do I want to do? And here's some of them to really enjoy.
Cool. So at this point I'm actually going to kind of open the floor to see if people out there have any questions. And there's all right, stand up and speak loudly.
I got 2 actually. First one was, what were the kind of guidelines you went with for determining what plans were going to make it to Requiem and which ones weren't? And why did you get so
Justin?
I kept the clans I liked. I kept the clans, in going from Masquerade to Requiem, there were certain clans that kind of hit bigger vampiric ideals, and there were clans that were much more narrow in focus. And the ones that hit those bigger ideals, the ones that you keep seeing throughout vampire literature, those were the gangrel, the bestial vampires. They're the ones who turn into wolves and turn into bats, things like that. They were the venture, they were the aristocrat,